Hey guys, okay, we're talking more of chapter 10. We're going to talk right now about becoming boys and girls. So, of course, infants don't really have an idea of male or female, boy, girl, that kind of stuff. But as kids start to get older, this becomes part of their consciousness and awareness, and it moves into their language. By two, there can be saying he or she, or, boy, girl, or I'm a girl, boy. They're going to know the differences potentially, and as they get a little bit older, they start to notice the differences and what they are and ask questions like, what's that? And where's mine? And why is mine different than his and hers and all that kind of stuff? What's that for? So they begin to notice these things, right? And especially if they potty train, they can begin to notice these things and ask questions and so forth. So all of this comes into their awareness. And as they're playing with more children, they're seeing the differences. Again, they can have that focus on appearance that we talked about with Piaget. They can still look at like short hair and think boy, long hair, girl. All different kinds of things can get in the way of logic around that, but they still have this idea. So age 4, it says children are convinced that certain toys are appropriate for one gender but not the other. So whether or not they buy into this necessarily, they still can get the idea from society, from parents, by, whatever it is that kind of draws them. They get to this idea that, dolls are for girls and trucks are for boys. That's a big question. Is it societal? Is it ingrained in us in some way? I have plenty of students who are parents who will say, my little girl always liked dolls, my little boy didn't, or but then I have a niece who, if you call her a princess, she might hit you, and she's never liked that stuff. And her brother, from the beginning, he preferred tutus and tiaras. So it's not always really clear, but they at least have the idea of the labels of these things pretty early. And what's interesting is our stores and our society kind of has started marketing around this. Pink and blue were not historically male-female colors specifically, but that's come into consciousness. Blue used to be actually more of a feminine color, pink masculine, but then through marketing all of this has happened. And even I'm putting on the news an article about Target stopping this, right? Stopping sort of gender identification of toys, which of course has some very happy and some in an uproar. That's always going to happen as we begin to look at this. So let's see, we have sex differences or biological differences. Your DNA difference. Are you a male or a female? What were you born in terms of your DNA? And, who are you in terms of that? Gender differences are more about the roles and behaviors that society says, culture says. People around you might say, this is a boy thing or this is a girl thing. So really little kids can be confused about this. They ask the questions. They don't know. I don't know what this is all about. Age 5, we get a little more increased awareness. Age 8, it's more of who they are. It becomes more of a self-defining idea. Increase of awareness of sex differences, preferences for same-sex playmates, gender activities, age 2 to 8. So this is that article, though, right here. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on that. This is just that as they grow from this 2 to 6 period, they grow into the awareness and into the awareness. And all of this is coming down in terms of how do we make children gender-wise, males and females based on society and culture. How does that all come about? And is it based on that? So are children socialized to gender stereotypes purely, or is there anything else going on, like evolution, neurology? Here's just a little thing for an extra point of extra credit. We're going to talk about this, so write 3 sentences, how you see or feel about this info, email it to me, and bring it to class for 1 point. So, do you think children are socialized purely on gender roles? Or is there some evolutionary aspect or neurological aspect? The interesting thing is that by evolution, if we think about it, hunter-gatherers, males were the hunters. They went out into to hunt. Female, it wasn't an oppressive thing. Females didn't because they had babies and it wasn't safe, and we figured that out pretty quickly. So they stayed at home and ran villages and things like that and took care of children and the place. And so those things came about based on biological differences that were just a matter of course. And these things then began to shape human brain architecture to some extent. This YouTube video right here I have also up on the news is a short video about a study that was done around the neurology of males and females, and they found that by adolescence there is a difference. It doesn't really show up until adolescence. So that goes again, is this created over time, or is this something that just kicks in? That males' brains are wired more from front to back in terms of around motor, spatial, that they're better at these things to some extent. And if we look back at evolution, men on fields hunting had to be good at like spatial recognition, where things are. Think about a football field, it's the same thing. You have to be able to see what's what, if it's safe, where to go, all of that stuff. And if we think about hunters, it was the same way. And if we think about the females back at home, nursing babies, more oxytocin, more connectivity, they're at home multitasking, taking care of multiple children, taking care of the home, the villages and the gathering and all of that. And their brains tend to wire cross-connect into better be multitaskers to do these things. And they also, they're language centers. They're at home talking and communicating and gossiping. Women became better at that stuff. The men who had to be quiet on planes, looking straight ahead, in active communion and camaraderie ship with each other. So some of this could be evolutionary. Some of it seems to be neurological. But does it come about, though, then, what if we teach young girls from the get-go those spatial recognition on sports fields and stuff the same way we do boys? Would it change that architecture? And as we go on in life, are we trying to change these roles? I mean, we are in society. We're asking men to get in touch with their feminine, to take care of the home. Some of them want to. Women are going out into the world more. They're, masculine and feminine are energies. So we can talk more about that, but it is a good question. So there are theories of all of this, and we look at our theories here. We have psychoanalytic theory with Freud. He had his phallic stage. Little boys, they get to know it, and when they're trying to learn to go to the bathroom, they become aware of it, they like it, they hold on, they get used to it, and then the Oedipus complex, the unconscious desire of young boys to replace their fathers and win their mother's exclusive love. So what Freud would say is, when little boys realize at an unconscious level that they can't kill their fathers and marry their mothers, they decide to be like their fathers. And this is how they define their gender role. They watch dad, they mimic that, model that, so that they become that, and that's how they become a man or a boy or a male. The superego is that part that's starting to come into play as morality. What's right, what's wrong becomes a question for young children. And killing dad is not okay. So the superego is a part of that. The Electra Complex came later. Desire of girls to replace their mothers and win their fathers. So they identification. They take on the behaviors of the same-sex parent in order to define themselves as males and females in the world. So that's psychoanalytic, very Freudian theory on gender identification. Behaviorism would tell us that we are basically reinforced to one or the other. So gender appropriate is rewarded, and gender inappropriate is either punished or at least not rewarded. So little girls, oh, look at my little girl in the dress, and she looks so pretty, and oh, you're playing with dolls, and then why is she playing with a truck? And you don't want that, honey. You don't want to be Darth Vader. You want to be Princess Leia. All of these things. Social learning, children notice the ways men and women behave, and they internalize those standards they observe. When they see grown-up men and women complimented, the woman being complimented on her looks and being complimented on the way she dresses and her femininity, then they internalize that. And when she's not, then they get that. And so they look at the reinforcements, rewards, and punishments that are going on around them in society and to themselves. They reinforce those things, and they build a gender self-concept around them. So that's very behaviorism. Cognitive theory would tell us that we build a schema. What is a man? What is a woman? We have our little card that tells us man, blah, 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 blah. Young children categorize themselves and everyone else as either male or female, and they think and behave accordingly based on what they get in their world, what they're told about men and women. They put it in their little schema. They assimilate or accommodate this information as they go along. So that was it for that. And then we will do the rest of chapter 10 in